Hey, can I share something with you that I really wish someone had told me much earlier in life? You know those people who make you feel like you're always doing something wrong, even when you're doing your absolute best to do right by them? It's like no matter how much effort you put into being understanding, patient, and kind, they just never seem to see it. You keep telling yourself, maybe if I'm just a little more patient, a little more kind, a little more understanding, they'll finally realize that I'm not the enemy here. But let me tell you, from personal experience, especially when it comes to dealing with narcissists, kindness doesn't break through to them the way you think it will. Instead, it feeds them. And I'm not saying this from a place of bitterness or anger. I'm sharing this with you because I truly care about you, and I don't want you to keep pouring your love, your energy, your goodness into something that will never reciprocate. You deserve so much more than that. You deserve to feel seen, valued, and loved in return. So, let's talk. Really talk. I'm going to share some important things I've learned over the years about how narcissists take our kindness and twist it into something they can control. And, more importantly, how to stop playing that toxic game, not with cruelty or vengeance, but with clarity and self-respect. Let's break this down. Point 1. You don't even notice it at first. That's the crazy part. It doesn't start with some dramatic outburst or a big confrontation. No, it begins so subtly, so quietly, that you don't even realize what's happening. At first, you're just trying to keep the peace, to smooth things over, to make sure everything stays calm, so you let a little comment slide. Nothing too major, right? Maybe they tease you in front of someone, and although it stings, you laugh it off because you convince yourself it wasn't that bad. They didn't mean it like that. But then there's another moment. A weird silence. A cold, almost dismissive look. Maybe it's a guilt trip thrown your way, and instead of standing your ground, you adjust. You start choosing your words more carefully. You think twice before expressing how you feel, because deep down, you already know how they'll react. You begin to avoid certain topics altogether, because why stir the pot if you can already predict the outcome? As time passes, you don't even realize it's happening, but you start shrinking. Your voice becomes quieter, softer, like you're afraid to speak too loudly in case it disturbs the fragile balance they have created. Your confidence wanes, and your smile, once natural and easy, begins to feel a little more forced, a little more rehearsed. And here's the really messed up part. You start blaming yourself. You begin to wonder if you're too sensitive. Maybe you're overreacting. Maybe you're the problem, not them. You ask yourself if you're just being dramatic, if you're imagining things. You try to rationalize, to find explanations for their behavior, but all it does is make you second guess yourself more and more. But let me be crystal clear with you. You're not the problem. That's exactly how it starts. Slowly, silently, with you giving a little here and a little there, until one day you wake up and realize that you've made yourself smaller just to keep them comfortable. And that right there, my friend, is the first red flag, the one you should never ever ignore. Point 2, they don't want peace, they want power. Let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where, no matter how calm, respectful, or patient you are, it just never seems to make a difference? You try everything you can to keep things cool, to avoid conflict, to be understanding, yet somehow things always seem to get worse. You may even think, maybe if I'm just a little kinder, a little more patient, a little less forceful, they'll finally relax. Maybe things will settle down. But here's the harsh truth. With a narcissist, peace is never the goal. Control is. And the more you try to keep the peace, the more they see it as an opportunity to take from you. Not just your time, energy, or attention, but your very sense of power. It's a manipulation game, and you're the pawn. You keep thinking that if you just stay calm, avoid confrontation, or don't push back too hard, they'll eventually calm down and the relationship will return to normal. But instead, they only see this as a sign that they can keep pushing, that you're giving them permission to demand more. The more you give, the more they'll take. And the real kicker, they don't see your kindness as something to appreciate. They see it as a sign of weakness, an opportunity to exploit. To them, your silence isn't a sign of peace. It's a signal that they've won. Your forgiveness doesn't mean you've moved on, it means they've gotten away with their behavior. Each time you back down, each time you choose to let things slide for the sake of keeping the peace, they're not thinking, wow, they're so understanding. No, they're thinking, great, they'll bend to my will every time I push. So let's be clear, they don't want harmony. They want the upper hand. And your kindness, your willingness to avoid conflict is the tool they use to gain control over you. Your patience isn't rewarded with respect, it's rewarded with more demands, more manipulation, and a deeper hold on your life. Quick break, close your eyes for a second. Picture her, the girl you've always wanted. Feel what it would be like to actually have her. Now open your eyes, because here's the truth. Right now, you're invisible to her. You're getting outcompeted by guys with more money, better looks, higher status, and stronger game. You're playing a rigged game, and you're losing. But I've spent the last 35 years mastering this, studying, testing, and finally finding the secrets to get the girls I always wanted. You want to stop getting ignored? You want her chasing you? Then you need to wake up and act. Click the link in the comments if you are truly committed and take the first step toward becoming that guy. Few spots left. Be fast or miss out your last chance to make her yours. Let's get back to it. Point 3. They don't come at you all at once. No, they learn you first, and that's where the real danger lies. At the beginning, it's not overt. It's not some immediate attack or confrontation. Instead, they sit back, observe, and study you. They watch every little thing, how you react to situations, what makes you smile, what makes you anxious, and most importantly, what makes you feel guilty. They learn your triggers, your vulnerabilities, and your insecurities, and over time, they gather every little piece of information they need to use against you later. If you're someone who prides themselves on being kind, who values being seen as a good, generous person, they'll twist that against you. They'll guilt trip you, making you feel like you're not doing enough, like your kindness isn't enough until you give more than you should, until you feel exhausted from constantly trying to meet their unending demands. If you hate conflict, if you avoid confrontation at all costs, they'll start small. Tiny, seemingly insignificant arguments that gradually escalate, just enough to get under your skin and provoke a reaction. It's not about the argument itself, it's about seeing how far they can push you, how much they can make you bend. They want to see you react, to see how much you'll sacrifice for the sake of peace. And if you open up about something personal, something that's deeply meaningful or painful to you, maybe a past wound, a betrayal, a regret, they'll file it away. And one day, when it's most damaging, they'll throw it back in your face, using it as ammunition to hurt you, to control you. It doesn't matter how vulnerable or trusting you've been. To them, every bit of personal information is a potential weapon, and they will use it to manipulate you when it serves their agenda. The worst part? It's not just about them taking your love, your care, or your trust. It's that they take your goodness and use it against you. They take everything you offer with sincerity and twist it into a tool of manipulation. That's what makes it hurt so much more. It's not just that they're using you, it's that they're using your heart, your genuine intentions to hurt you. But here's the thing, don't confuse their interest in you with care. It's not about love or concern, it's about calculation, it's about strategy. They don't misunderstand your heart or your good intentions. They know exactly how to twist them to suit their needs. They're not confused by your kindness. They've learned exactly how to manipulate it. Point 4. Guilt is the chain that keeps you there. Let me tell you something important. Guilt is their favorite weapon, especially when it's your guilt. It's the one thing that keeps you tethered, that makes you stay in a toxic cycle. The truth is, narcissists rarely apologize, right? They never truly take responsibility for their actions. But somehow, despite this, you always find yourself apologizing. You're the one constantly explaining yourself, justifying your feelings, trying to keep the peace, trying to smooth things over. And here's why. They've expertly trained you to feel guilty for simply existing as yourself. Every time you say no to them, they act like you've committed a crime. They make you feel like you've hurt them deeply, like your boundaries are somehow a personal attack. When you speak up about how you feel or ask for something you need, they label you as dramatic, or worse, they accuse you of overreacting. When you ask for space or time for yourself, they twist it into you being selfish, as if your own needs don't matter at all. Over time, these tactics begin to erode your sense of self. You start to doubt your own boundaries. You feel guilty for needing space. You feel bad for prioritizing yourself, for asserting your own rights. And eventually, you start to say yes when you should say no, just to avoid feeling like the bad guy. But let me be blunt with you. That guilt, that feeling you carry around like a weight, it doesn't belong to you. It's not your responsibility. It's a trick. It's a hook they've set to keep you tied to their manipulation. And the hardest part, you start to believe it's yours. You start to think that maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe you are being unreasonable, when in fact, they are the ones playing on your emotions to keep you small. Here's the real truth. A person who truly loves you will never make you feel guilty for having boundaries. A person who respects you won't shame you for needing space, for having needs, or for speaking up about how you feel. Guilt is not a tool of love. It's a tool of control. And someone who loves you won't manipulate your feelings to keep you in line. Point 5. You keep explaining yourself, hoping they'll finally get it. And this one really cuts deep, because you're not trying to argue. You're not trying to start a fight or make things harder. All you want is for them to understand you. You want them to hear what you're saying, to feel what you're feeling, to recognize that you're not coming from a place of hostility, but from a place of vulnerability, a place of wanting to be seen and understood. So, you explain. You break things down over and over again, trying to make it as simple as you can. You stay calm, even when you're on the verge of losing patience, because you believe that if you just choose your words carefully enough, they'll finally hear you. But instead of getting through to them, your words fall flat. They twist everything you say. What you meant to be an honest, open conversation becomes something entirely different. They don't hear you. They turn it around and make it about themselves. They accuse you of overreacting, of being overly sensitive, or worse, they dismiss it altogether, acting like what you're saying doesn't even matter. And you're left standing there, feeling confused, wondering, what did I do wrong? Here's the hard truth. Nothing. You didn't do anything wrong. You're just trying to be understood by someone who has no interest in understanding you at all. They're not listening to connect with you. They're not listening to empathize. They're listening only to defend their own control, to maintain their position of power. The more you try to explain, the more they feel in charge. You're handing them the reins every time you try to justify yourself, every time you break things down again and again, hoping they'll see reason. But all it does is give them more ammunition to twist your words, to reinforce their control over the conversation and ultimately over you. Eventually, you realize something painful, that no matter how much you explain, no matter how much you beg for understanding, they will never listen. And at some point, you have to stop. You have to stop trying to be heard by someone who's committed to staying deaf to your needs, your feelings, and your voice. The silence you're left with isn't defeat. It's clarity. It's the moment when you stop fighting to be understood by someone who isn't capable of hearing you. Point 6. You call it growth, but really you're just bending. This one is tricky because we've all been taught that growth is a positive thing. We're taught that growth means being more patient, more flexible, more understanding, that it's about meeting people halfway. And in healthy relationships, that's true. But when you're with a narcissist, it's never halfway. It's always you doing all the bending. It's always you adjusting, compromising, and sacrificing while they remain unyielding. At first, you might think that you're becoming more patient, more mature, more resilient. You tell yourself, I'm learning, I'm evolving, I'm handling things better than I used to. But deep down, something doesn't feel right. You start to feel exhausted, you feel smaller, you feel disconnected from the person you used to be, the person who stood firm in their values, who felt confident in their voice. You begin to lose touch with your own identity because all you've been doing is adjusting, reshaping yourself to fit into a mold that works for them, not for you. And here's the hard truth. You might be calling this growth, but what it really is survival. You're constantly adapting just to avoid conflict. You're molding yourself into a version of you that can live peacefully with someone who won't meet you halfway, someone who will never bend, never compromise. You're not growing, you're just trying to stay close to someone who refuses to do the same for you. True growth doesn't come at the expense of who you are. It doesn't require you to shrink or lose pieces of yourself. Growth should build you up, not tear you down. It should give you strength, not make you feel weak or depleted. If the only way you can stay in the relationship is by continually shrinking yourself, by bending further and further to accommodate someone who never adjusts for you, then maybe it's time to ask yourself, is this a relationship worth saving? Because growth isn't about losing yourself. It's about becoming the fullest version of yourself. And sometimes that means walking away from situations and people who demand you bend too far. Point 7. When you stop reacting, you'll break their script. Let me tell you something. Do you know what throws a narcissist off more than anything? It's not anger, it's not tears, it's not even calling them out or standing up to them. It's indifference. See, their entire game depends on your reaction. They thrive on it. They push your buttons. They provoke you. They try to get you to respond because as long as they can get a rise out of you, they know they've still got you in the loop. Whether you cry, argue, beg, or defend yourself to them, that's a win. You're still playing their game. You're still reacting to the drama they've created, still giving them the emotional energy they crave. But here's where things change. When you stop reacting, when you recognize the game they're playing and refuse to take the bait, that's when everything begins to shift. You stop flinching when they poke and prod at you. You stop feeding into the cycle of conflict. You let their drama unfold and you simply choose not to participate. And let me tell you, that's when the real power shifts. They won't know what to do with you. They can't control someone who refuses to play the game. They won't know how to handle the fact that you've stepped off their stage and stopped playing the role they've cast you in. They'll test you again. They'll poke harder. They'll try sweet talking you. Or they might suddenly play the victim, trying to guilt you into taking the bait again. But don't be fooled. It's all just a strategy. It's all a last-ditch attempt to regain control. So here's the key. Stay still. Stay calm. Let them perform their little show, but don't show up to watch. Don't participate in their game, because the moment you stop feeding their need for control, when you refuse to react in the way they want, that's the moment they lose the script. And guess what happens then? You finally get your peace back. You finally regain your power, your sense of self, and your emotional freedom. Look, I know how hard this is. I know the deep heartbreak that comes with the painful realization that someone you cared about, someone you invested your time and love in, never really cared about you in the way you deserved. I know the ache of feeling betrayed, of giving your all, only to find out that what you were offering was never truly valued. But let me tell you something. You're not crazy for loving hard. You're not weak for trying to make it work, even when things fell off. You're not broken because you believed in their potential, because you saw the good in them and hoped they could change. What you're going through is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of your incredible heart, a heart that has given everything it had to give. But here's the shift. You're just done. And that, my friend, is not defeat. That is power. It's the power to walk away from a situation that was never in your control. It's the power to take back your emotional energy, to choose yourself over the unhealthy patterns that held you back. You don't have to become bitter. You don't have to let the toxicity around you turn you into someone you're not. You don't have to match their cruelty, their manipulation, or their disregard for your feelings. What you have to do is stop showing up for a game that's rigged from the start, because no matter how much you bend or give, they'll never change. You are allowed to choose peace over performance. You are allowed to choose self-respect over second chances that will only bring you back to square one. And the silence you choose now, it's not the silence of fear, of avoidance. No, it's the silence of freedom. It's the silence that comes with knowing you've finally taken back your life, your heart, your boundaries, because the second you stop needing them to change, the second you stop waiting for them to finally see your worth, that's the second you begin to change everything for yourself. And let me tell you, that's where healing really begins. The moment you stop chasing their approval, their affection, or their validation is the moment you start healing, truly healing. You start finding your way back to who you are to who you were before you ever became entangled in their drama. And that, my friend, is where you reclaim your peace. That's where you reclaim your power. If you found this insight valuable, make sure to subscribe to The Girl's Mind for more wisdom on mastering your life and attraction. Until next time, stay strong, stay centered, and always remember, the key to attraction isn't in chasing, it's in being. But for those of you who are serious about stepping up and taking control, I've created a one-on-one chat with me. Choose your package and let's solve any problem you're facing, whether it's crushing your goals or handling that conversation with a girl.